it is interesting watching and listening to all the rumors coming out of the Combine, because a lot of the conversation is, the Eagles are entering a really interesting offseason where their free agents are going to be expensive, right? The guy...
Hot commodities.
Yep, or different rumors out there. Who might go after Milton Williams? Who might go after Josh Sweat? Like there's a lot of people out there who think the Eagles' big free agents, Becton and Sweat and Williams and Bond,
they gone.
They're either gone or they're going to cost a lot of money to retain for the Eagles. So we have that element, right? That these guys are going to cost a lot of money. And then the other element is, if you want the Eagles to go bold and big the way we talked last week about like Myles Garrett, right? He's going to be expensive, not only in what you would have to trade for him, but then the contract you'd have to give him. So, Hugh, there is, the reality is the salary cap is what it is. How we can massage and move numbers around. But they only have so much money, right? Every team has so much money. Hugh, there is a way, though, if the Eagles want to do something, I would call it bold, outside the box. There is a way to create a lot of money all of a sudden. You know what that would be? That'd be to give more money to Jalen Hurts. That would be to give him a contract extension, extend his contract, kind of like you remember when the Chiefs gave Patrick Mahomes that 10-year deal,
10-year life extension.
Yeah, they spread it out. They spread all that thing and that way they don't pay him that much per year. Nah. So Jalen Hurts has about 4 years left on his deal. I mean, there is a way to do this, Hugh. Would you give Jalen Hurts a contract extension right now? And obviously, we're talking about market value, right? So it'd be what the quarterbacks get per year. Would you extend that contract out, Hugh Douglas, to give the Eagles more flexibility? If you were Howie, if you're the Eagles, are you giving Jalen a contract extension right now?
Can I be allowed to long talk just for a minute? Because I feel like a lot of times we had these conversations. For me, it's yes or no, but I feel like I have to give a little context of why I feel the way that I feel. So to answer the question, yes, I feel like they need to. But this is the reason why I feel like that. This weekend, all last week we talked about whether or not we wanted Myles Garrett here and whether or not what price tag would that take to get him here, and what about the future of this franchise when you get a guy like that. So I've been hearing a lot of rumors and been reading a lot of stuff about the fact that the Eagles are seriously interested in Myles Garrett. And we all know what that price tag is going to take when it comes to that. We all know what the future looks like for the Philadelphia Eagles. And that is that at some point, you're going to have to pay Jalen Carter a Gripperton. He's probably the one that you look at as far as the young guys go, that is the absolute most important individual that you have on this squad. So you're going to have some money for him. And on the flip side of that, you look at the what Myles Garrett brings to the table. And it's shades of Reggie and Jerome. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. When I think about the combination of Jalen Carter and Myles Garrett here, that's what I get shades of. Back in the day when Seth played, and those guys used to get after murdering quarterbacks. Like, that's, as a defensive lineman, as a former defensive lineman, those are the type of cats that you look at that you want to play with. But in order to make that happen, you got to get some money. And right now, the Eagles don't have enough money to sign them. And I know that a lot of people might look at this and say, hey, you know what? We're going to try to sign all the other guys. Nah, I think this team is still going to be built solely around the young guys. But if you're going to make that kind of move and get Myles Garrett and put this team in position to be successful again, you're going to have money. So if that means I got to give Jalen some more money, I mean, I think it's warranted, especially coming off a year that he had. And not only that, I think that he's in a position where he's growing as a quarterback. You saw some of the skits out there or the video of him working out. So, yeah, to answer your question in a long talking way, yes, I would extend him to make this team better and get Myles Garrett and still have money down the line to pay Jalen Carter.
215-592-9494. We were, 3 weeks ago we came in here and we were talking about Jalen Hurts and one of the great performances in Eagles history, a Super Bowl MVP. He was incredible in the title game and incredible in the Super Bowl. And look, everyone right now, how do you not love what Jalen Hurts did in the biggest games? And I'm happy Jalen Hurts is the Eagles quarterback. And I'm excited that he's the Eagles quarterback for the next 4 years under contract, no doubt about it. And I think at some point in the next few years, this is going to be a thing that I might want to do. That day's not today, though. at some point, we can have a real conversation about Jalen Hurts when we take down the emotion. And I'm not saying you had the emotion there. That was a reasonable thing you said there about Myles Garrett. But a lot of people the last few weeks were living in this like euphoric Jalen Hurts thing, right? Because he just did what he did, and he deserves all the credit for that. But I also think when you talk about contracts, you got to talk about the full picture. It's not just the Super Bowl, not just the NFC title game. Because if that was the case, Nick Foles would have been the Eagles quarterback for 5 years after the Super Bowl. Right? It's not just about one game. It's about the picture of a career and the trajectory. And I can't forget that a lot of this season, it felt up and down with Jalen Hurts. It wasn't dominant all year. It wasn't excellent all year. It wasn't all pro all year. That was what we saw in the end, and I think we can understand now Jalen Hurts is a big game player. But I'm not interested today in extending him. They still have 4 years left in this contract. I still think Howie Roseman could do enough with the cap room they have where Jalen Hurts is. I'm not ready to do it. And beyond his statistics, right, which were good, not great. Beyond his play, which has been very good, but probably not great all the time. Here's the reality when I look at him. Hugh, I'm not sure what he's going to look like in his 30s. He's still in his prime, right? He's 26 years old. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to have him as the Eagles quarterback when he's 26 and 27 and 28 and 29. But Hugh, what you're talking about and what's, this idea that's out that we're bringing up today, Hugh, that means extending him into his 30s, right? Yeah. We're talking about 31, 32, 33, 34. I have no idea what he's going to look like at that point in terms of physical. He's a runner, right? He's a quarterback.
How his body's going to hold up, all of that.
And we've seen different guys, right? Some evolve to where they could throw the ball better as they age, and they have to run less. Maybe that's Jalen. Maybe what we saw in the Super Bowl and title game, that's Jalen Hurts. Some don't, though. I mean, Cam Newton, he fell apart at the age of 30 after all the physicality.
Yeah, he took a toll, though.
He did.
And I would say that right now, Jalen is a better passer than Cam was.
I would agree with you on that.
And I mean, that's not saying a whole lot, but I think he is. And I think that with Jalen, because I'm paying, like, for Jalen, for me, when I think about Jalen, I'm looking at the fact that he got back in the lab a couple weeks after winning the Super Bowl, and he's trying to become a better quarterback.
Yep.
Now, we don't know what the future holds, but I will say this. As far taking out athleticism and what he's accomplished so far as on the field, I think his qualities as a leader are second to none. And the reason why I say that is, listening to some of the stuff that Jordan Mailata said last week about him, and, Jalen saying it's what the F I do and all that other stuff. You need that type of leader. I know that might not seem like a lot to a lot of people, but for him to be able to stay within himself, block out all the outside noise, especially in this day and age, and this media, this media indulgence that we live in nowadays with social media and all of this stuff, and how we see how cats crash out on social media and stuff like that because the pressure becomes too much. I think Jalen has shown me that he can handle all that. He's shown a side that I don't think I don't know what it was when Jaws was here. I'm pretty sure it's about the same. But he's shown me a side where a lot of people can't handle what he went through. Mm-hmm. And he handled it gracefully. Like he handled it in a way where it might have rubbed some people the wrong way, but he was always even keeled. He had his little moments when he was in press conferences and stuff when he talked about, hey, do you like that or whatever. But the point that I'm making is this, as I long talk, he stayed the same. He stayed the course. And I think there's something to be said about that.
Well, he did. And look, I think the Eagles are thrilled. They should be thrilled. We all should be thrilled that he's here and he's under contract for the next 4 years. I'm just not interested today. To me, it's two risks, and the reward isn't worth it enough. I would not extend Jalen Hurts' contract today. 215-592-9494. So you're right. He's a better passer than Cam, Hugh. I agree with you. And I think he's going to end up just have a better career than Cam Newton in totality. But another guy he reminds a lot of people of, including me, is Russell Wilson. When Russell Wilson got into his early 30s, that athleticism went, and he wasn't as good anymore. And now he's bounced around at 3 different teams in 4 years. Another guy I think it's fair to bring up. I mean, how many great years did Donovan have after he turned 30? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Donovan won 10 games in a season one time after he turned 30. Sometimes when there's quarterbacks that are mobile, that take hits, that are athletic, when that athleticism falls off a little bit, they fall off 215-592-9494. I'm not doing it, but I understand your perspective, and it would help the Eagles keep some of these guys. Let's listen to Tom Pelissero this weekend on the Rich Eisen Show talking about why Myles Garrett and some of these big free agents probably aren't going to be here. They just don't have enough money to work with.
I would anticipate he asks, but remember, Howie is drafted unbelievably well in recent years. I mean, look no further than the Super Bowl when they manhandled the Chiefs on both sides of the football. It's because of the investment they've made in the offensive and defensive line, the number of high picks here. Eventually, you got to pay Jalen Carter. You got to maybe pay, we'll see what happens with Milton Williams, who's going to get a bag in free agency. You got to pay maybe Zach Bond. I know they'd like to pay Zach Bond, but can they actually get that done? At some point, it's like all that additional money to go and get Myles Garrett. I'm not saying it's impossible, but you're talking about really, bending physics here in terms of the salary cap. So, it's the same thing with the Lions. I know that everybody keeps going, the Lions going to get Myles Garrett. Well, they're going to have another $35 million a year pass rusher in Aiden Hutchinson in the not too distant future. He's eligible for a contract extension right now. And I would think Detroit at least has to give mind to, we should do this deal before Myles and Micah Parsons and Max Crosby and TJ Watt and maybe Trey Henderson all get 35 plus, because that's going to be even more expensive. No team I'm aware of has two $35 million pass rushers on their team.
So he's talking about bending physics to make all the players work, to re-sign the free agents, to go get Myles Garrett. Well, there's another way. You can extend Jalen Hurts' contract right now. 215-592-9494. Should the Eagles give Jalen Hurts a contract extension right now, similar to the way the Chiefs did it with Mahomes a few years ago? 10 years, $450 million they gave him. The Eagles would have to tack on like 6 years to what Jalen Hurts has left. Would you do that right now to give themselves cap relief, to try to keep these guys, lower Jalen Hurts' cap number, but you're extending him all the way into his mid-30s. Kyle, Jalen Hurts has been nothing but celebration, and rightfully so of him the last few weeks. But now, would you pay him more money to extend that contract?
So, admittedly, I've gone back and forth on this a lot, and I understand how big of a risk it is, how long of a commitment it is. But if I'm keeping the same energy from last week, I want Myles Garrett here.
And this is the way to do it.
This is the way to do it. I want a big splash, whether it's Myles Garrett or it's somebody else that might cost the Eagles a good bit of money or a good bit of resources. I want them to be able to do that. So it's sort of the same energy that I had with the draft picks in the first round, where I'm saying I'll deal with the future later. I'm trying to capitalize on a window that we have right now. And you brought up the Russell Wilson thing. I think another part of the Russell Wilson thing with Seattle that's interesting is they only won one Super Bowl with Russell Wilson there.
They kind of screwed up the second half of it.
Correct. So, if I'm thinking about the Russell Wilson thing, I want multiple Super Bowls. I want to go back, and I want to repeat next season. We have a window right now. So, I'm not kidding myself about the big picture with how Jalen Hurts played this season. I know there was a lot of turmoil and there was criticism by the wide receiver about how the passing game wasn't good enough. That all isn't just erased from me. But what Jalen Hurts did show is that he's capable of winning you the Super Bowl when he has enough talent around him. And this is a way that we can add more talent to Jalen Hurts. So if that's the lever that we got to pull, I'm willing to pull it, and I'll cross that other bridge when we get to it.
215-592-9494. That's how you get aboard. Should the Eagles give Jalen Hurts a contract extension right now, take him into his mid-30s, and open up some cap space? It would do it. If the objective is to open up cap space to keep these guys, to keep Mekhi Becton and Zach Bond and Josh Sweat and Milton Williams, whoever you want to keep, or to go after Myles Garrett the way Kyle does, the way Hugh is referenced there, then this is a way to do it. I'm just not interested today in locking myself and locking the Eagles into age 32, 33, 34, 35 for Jalen Hurts. I'm happy he's here right now for the next 4 years. I'll cross that bridge in a couple more years.